श्री श्री रास बिहारिणी जू की जय हो, श्री आचार्य जी की जय और सब वैष्णवों को जय श्री कृष्ण. Day 94, letter 37 of Sri Hari Rai Ji's 41 Bade Shiksha Patra, commencing with verse 4 and completing the letter with verse 8. Verse 4. I do not have entrance into the devotional path, nor have I any position within the path of righteous duty. I do not have a pure attitude to holy places, and because of the impurity of the times I am living in, nor do I have scriptural propriety. Tika 4. This path of grace is the most elevated, and I cannot enter therein. Even Brahma and Shiva do not achieve entrance into Sri Acharyaji's path of grace. Gopal Das has sung, not everyone can attain entrance into Sri Acharyaji's path. Thus I know this path to be very pure, and there is no quality within me that might grant me access therein. As I am full of preventative faults. I also do not have any status within the path of righteous duty, on the mundane plane. I know that the path of devotion is very, very elevated and spiritual, and I cannot therefore enter in. So I should at least have some situation in the realm of worldly matters. I do not, however, have any status there or even in my home. 19th. I do not surrender to the purity of holy places. So many embodied souls serve those holy places of pilgrimage like Varanasi, Kashi, Prayag and Vraj, but I do not. 20th. The Vedic scriptural path is impossible to follow because of the impurity of the age we live in. These scriptures speak of the rewards of heaven to those who perform uplifted and appropriate activity, but in this age of struggle even these are out of reach. In his treatise Sannyasa Nirane, Conclusions on Renunciation, Sri Acharyaji teaches this situation arises because of this age of impurity, and in his Sri Krishna Ashray, Refuge in Krishna treatise, he tells us, most of the paths of proper action, fasts and vows have been destroyed. The most efforts put in on the path of hypocrisy. My only way is to follow Sri Krishna. So in this path of Kali, even the path of lawful limitations is non-functional. Therefore I have no position in any such scriptural activity. 21st. Verse 5. I am not free from the need to engage in gainful employment, and whilst I am engaged I do not remember Sri Hari. I am not capable of the degree of renunciation necessary for making proper service to the Lord, and thus I cannot attain that state of mental independence which results from keeping the mind under such control. Tika 5. I have not yet reached a stage where I do not have to engage in gainful employment. Sri Acharyaji teaches in his Bhakti Vardhini treatise, The Way to Increase Devotion, when you are free from worldly engagement, then worship Sri Krishna through service, fasting, through service, listening to his pastimes and singing his praises. If I were free, I could thus serve him, but I am not. That's the 22nd. Even whilst engaged, one should keep the mind fixed on Shri Krishna. Again, in his Bhakti Vardhini, Sri Acharyaji teaches, even when engaged in worldly activities, make an effort to always focus your heart on Shri Krishna and try to simultaneously listen to his pastimes. An example of this is the devotee Santadas, who sold small coins for a living, but whilst doing so, he absorbed his mind in his beloved and spoke to no one. I find myself unable to keep my mind thus fixed on the Lord. That's the 23rd. In order to suitably serve the Lord, I should be able to rid my mind of bodily, sensual, worldly and scriptural considerations, but I am not. Without this degree of renunciation, how can I properly serve my Lord? Sri Acharyaji has taught in his Sevaphalam treatise, Rewards of Service, anxiety, obstructions and sensual enjoyment are the three main things that hinder service. Note, there are two types of obstructions. The first is normal and the second are put up by the Lord himself. One can make efforts to rid oneself of the first kind as far as possible. There are also two types of sensual enjoyment, worldly and spiritual. The first, worldly, must be renounced, and the second, spiritual, is the supreme reward. Then in the same text, you should rid yourself of any activity that presents an obstacle between you and your service to the Lord. Among these worldly sensual enjoyment is a singularly very strong obstacle. Anxiety, obstructions and sensual enjoyment such as a prime example, eating and drinking very fine foodstuffs just for one's own selfish enjoyment, should thus be renounced for the sake of serving the Lord. I do not have such renunciation in me. That's the 24th. Thus I have no spiritual independence because I am the grips of the senses, having not been able to renounce selfish sensual enjoyment. Independence is a far cry for me. It is thus to be understood that one should gain independence by withdrawing one's mind from all other directions, worldly and scriptural, etc., and simply take refuge in the Lord's feet. I have thus not surrendered. That's the 25th. These numbers apply to disqualification from Nisad and Tabhav, as you remember from the beginning. Verse 6. The feeling of separation from Shri Krishna has not arisen within me. I have not controlled my speech nor my mind. I am not able to keep a neutral attitude towards non-devotees, and I am not able to detach myself from too much involvement in my worldly home. Tika. I have not realized the state of separation from Shri Krishna. I know this because such realization leads to complete removal from worldly and scriptural involvements, and it also brings humility. In the Ras Panchadhyay, 5 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam regarding the meetings of Shri Krishna with the gopis, the Lord makes himself disappear. The devotees there present were humble and began to lament, "Where are you, our Lord, supreme enjoyer? Where are you with your strong arms? O friend, we are your servants. Please show yourself to us." These gopis then begin to cry through humility. Seeing this, the Lord reappeared. From this we learn that the best reward of this path of seva is the path of grace, is the anguish of separation. I do not have any such sentiment of separation in me. 26. Neither do I have any control over my speech or my eyes. The Srimad Bhagavatam states, eyes that are not used to behold the Lord's features are uselessly unseeing like the eyes on a peacock feather. And a tongue that does not sing the Lord's praises uselessly prattles like that of a frog. Both of these organs can become great obstacles to devotion. If the tongue is not controlled, then it remains guilty of offensive speech, and if the eyes are only used to see the faults of others, then the heart becomes impure. Thus their control is essential, and I do not have such control. 27th. It is important to be indifferent to those who are not devotees, but affectionate to those who are, because their company can certainly guide one to the highest devotional reward. I have neither affection towards the great devotees nor indifference towards the non-devotees, so how will I ever get absorbed in the principles of the path? 28. I am also very attached to my activities within my worldly home, which is in itself a great obstacle to devotion. Sri Acharyaji has warned us over and over again in his teachings against the faults that can arise from such attachment. It is also in so many places within the Srimad Bhagavatam that such strong attachment to the mundane home and worldly activities renders devotion hard to attain. Therefore, non-attachment is essential, and I do have this, being so attached as I am. 29th. Verses 7 and 8. I am not at all free from egotism and pride. I do not embrace my devotional path from all sides. I have not renounced involvement in other paths. I am a storehouse of all the faults listed above, and devoid of all good qualities. What will my Lord Sri Krishna do with me? It is in this very way that a devotee should cultivate humility and the recognition of their lack of spiritual means to please the Lord. Egotistical pride is a huge obstacle to the path of devotion. In his Vivek Dhairya Ashray treatise, Wisdom, Perseverance and Refuge, Sri Acharyaji has stated, depending on the Lord alone, give up false pride. If you pridefully consider yourself independent, you lose the righteous way of humble servitude. A servant of the Lord knows Sri Krishna to be their one and only, and depends entirely on him. But I am full of ego. That's the 30th. A devotee of the path of grace should totally embrace their path and follow it with firm resolution. There is an account of how Birbal, a minister of the emperor's court, asked Chitta Swami, the poet disciple of Sri Gosaiji, "You have sung of Sri Gosaiji as being one with Sri Krishna. If the emperor hears this, how will you reply to justify the statement?" Sri Chitta Swami immediately rebuked him. "You are a barbarian. From today onwards I would never look at your face again." Leaving behind all the emperor's gifts, he left that place. In this way, one must protect one's own heartfelt beliefs and loyalties, including protecting them from lust, anger, pride and envy. I, however, do not embrace my path in this manner. That's the 31st. Adherence to any other path is an obstacle to those who follow the path of grace, but I have not yet given up my dalliance in other ways. 32nd. So, these are the 32 types of impurity with which I am replete. So, O my Lord Shri Krishna, you are my Lord and Master. Now what will you do with me? Will you renounce me or accept me? I have no clue what you will do. Sri Hari Rai Ji now states, I am the abode of all the above listed 32 types of impurity, and actually I am an ocean of countless faults. I have no good qualities to speak of, so now, O Lord, what will you do with me? One should thus regularly contemplate one's own character and develop humility. When the Lord sees a humble devotional attitude, he becomes filled with compassion, enters that heart, and grants that devotee the direct experience of his presence. Concluding with verse 8 there on letter 37. And we will resume tomorrow on day 95 with letter 38. आज के आनंद की जय हो। सब वैष्णवों को जय श्री कृष्ण। श्री श्री रास विहारिणी जी की जय हो। शिक्षा पत्र की जय। सब वैष्णवों को जय श्री कृष्ण। राधे राधे।